Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Monday, February 22nd. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Triple C. Deja vu. A shortage of vaccines due to a cold snap back east has canceled vaccination appointments and closed down sites serving those most at risk. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman tells us with the supply shortage, many first dose appointments are being put on hold.
Okay, thanks so much.
People we spoke to at the CSU San Marcos Vaccination Superstation were glad that their second appointments were still scheduled for today.
Second shot, booster, whatever you want to call it, we're happy.
Jim and Connie Schwartz from Rancho Bernardo want to get vaccinated quickly so they can see loved ones again.
Most important reason?
Grandchildren.
We have grandkids in Minnesota, and we will not be able to see them until we get a shot.
Is this the first dose or your second dose?
Second.
Others like Lawrence Mendoza from Vista are hoping that getting vaccinated means getting back to normal.
Well, I have my first granddaughter. She's only 2. She's living with us, so now, want to go to SeaWorld, the Animal Park, the zoo, places like that.
This is my second one, so.
Because of vaccine shipping delays, many county-sponsored sites are focusing on second dose appointments. The vaccine shortage has once again closed the busiest vaccination station near Petco Park downtown. That site is set to reopen tomorrow.
My mom is one of the ones that had the Moderna down at Petco Park and then was postponed due to the fact that they are out of Moderna.
Jamie Taylor says her mom's appointment was postponed 9 days and she's running out of time to get her second shot.
So I'm praying that she will actually have her vaccine on Thursday.
Taylor calls herself a vaccine chaser. She's not a healthcare worker or over 65, but a few weeks ago, she was able to get a leftover dose that would have otherwise gone bad.
Once the vaccine's been thawed out, it has to be used that day.
Taylor takes care of both of her parents, plus she's a teacher at Paloma Elementary in San Marcos.
I feel very strongly that teachers need to be vaccinated. All done?
Governor Newsom says starting next month, the state will start setting aside doses just for those working in schools.
10% set aside of all the first doses the state of California receives will be going directly prioritized to that cohort, to our educators and child care workers, which are also essential to getting our schools reopened as well.
For those who lost their appointments at the Petco Park site, UC San Diego health officials say to check your emails and your MyChart account, as vaccinations will automatically be rescheduled. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
An unfathomable loss. More than 500,000 Americans have now died from COVID-19. That's more than any other country. President Joe Biden urged Americans to resist becoming numb to the sorrow and viewing each life as a statistic.
We ask you to join us, to remember so we can heal, to find purpose in the work ahead, to show that there is light in the darkness. This nation will smile again. This nation will know sunny days again. This nation will know joy again. And as we do, we'll remember each person we've lost, the lives they lived, the loved ones they left behind.
President Biden followed his comments with a moment of silence at the White House, along with the First Lady, Vice President Kamala Harris, and the Second Gentleman. 500 candles were placed on the steps and balcony to represent the lives lost. As the nation reacts to this grim milestone, the House Budget Committee voted to advance a COVID relief bill. Mary Maloney has more from Washington.
If I could tell her anything, I said, babe, I love you so much. I know that the Lord has you.
Millions of memories about the 500,000 American lives lost to COVID-19.
She was my biggest role model.
Definitely going to be really hard without her.
On Capitol Hill, a moment of silence.
In remembrance of more than 500,000 Americans who've passed away from the COVID-19 virus.
Families shattered, businesses shuttered, and the economy devastated.
American small businesses are hurting badly, and they need help now.
To help the smallest of businesses and nonprofits, starting Wednesday, President Biden is giving those with fewer than 20 employees exclusive access to apply for Paycheck Protection Program loans for 2 weeks.
This is a starting point, not the ending point. We need Congress to pass my American Rescue Plan.
As of now, the nearly $2 trillion plan has no congressional Republican support.
This is the wrong plan at the wrong time and for all the wrong reasons.
But Democrats, sticking together, are moving toward a House vote by the end of the week.
We aren't going to wait. We are going to pass this legislation, and we are going to turn this pandemic and economic crisis around.
Their goal? Get the bill signed into law by March 14th. In Washington, Mary Maloney, KPBS News.
A big legal loss for former President Donald Trump. A Supreme Court ruling today cleared the way for New York prosecutors to access his tax returns. Trump's lawyers have been fighting to shield his financial papers from the Manhattan District Attorney. Prosecutors have argued that they need the returns for their grand jury investigation into hush money payments and other issues. Grand jury secrecy rules will still keep the documents from becoming public. The San Diego Unified School District is taking another step toward in-person learning. KPBS education reporter Joe Hong shows us how the district's new learning labs are helping vulnerable students who've fallen behind.
My name is Allison Paredes.
Back in January, Allison Paredes volunteered to start teaching in person at Franklin Elementary School in the City Heights neighborhood. She worked with 6 kindergarten students for just a few hours a day, but those few hours have made a significant difference.
I've been able to have some of my most vulnerable students coming in. So my students where English might not be their first language, and so it helps with the language barrier, or students that have IEPs, individualized education programs in place. So it's been really great.
Franklin Elementary is one of a number of schools across the district that have launched learning labs, which will bring thousands of students back to campuses.
I got to try it on with 6 students, and because that went so well, I feel very comfortable, and that helped my decision in, expanding.
Starting Monday, Paredes will have up to 14 students for a full school day, but she won't be on her own. The district is providing a classroom aide to make sure students are staying safe and on track. Paredes said this will be a huge help as she's simultaneously teaching students in person and virtually.
In a kindergarten classroom, it's really going to be important for me to have a second adult in the room to help, with if they're having a problem in person, that second adult can go assist them while I'm working on the lesson.
District-wide, about 20,000 students qualified to participate in the learning labs. The district is prioritizing students with disabilities, students experiencing homelessness, foster children, and students identified by their teachers as falling behind during distance learning. Richard Barrera is president of the district's board.
Being able to, kind of zone in and target those students, even as we're working towards, broader reopening for everybody, is important.
Barrera said the learning labs also provide a way to test the district's safety protocols before a full reopening.
Even though we may put the mitigation, strategies in place, they have to be implemented successfully. And so this gives us a chance to do that.
The district will present an updated plan for a broader reopening based on recent CDC and state guidelines at Tuesday's board meeting. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
Workers' rights will have a stronger focus with the adoption of a new initiative from the District Attorney's Office. Today, DA Summer Stephan announced the Workplace Justice Unit, which protects against wage theft, labor trafficking, and supports workplace victims. She says wage theft and workplace abuses are underreported for fear of retaliation.
Wage theft is, in fact, a crime. It is just like if somebody walked into a store and stole a whole bunch of things off the shelf. That's the same thing when an employer does not pay the wages that are earned. That is another form of theft, and it is a serious crime.
Stephan says wage theft produces unfair competition that drives legitimate contractors and small businesses out of the market who can't compete with unscrupulous employers. This initiative stems from a community-based feedback panel in partnership with County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher to find ways to better protect workers across the county. A police officer is expected to make a full recovery after he was shot responding to a domestic violence call in Escondido. The suspect, identified as Anastasio Rosas Jr., had already taken off when officers arrived at the apartment just before 3 o'clock this morning. An officer spotted him driving and tried to pull him over when Rosas shot at the police car, hitting the officer.
The gunshot was to the left buttocks, which was non-life threatening. The sergeant was treated at Palomar Hospital and later released. No officers fired their weapons during this incident.
Police released a photo of Rosas and later got a tip that he was seen in a vacant apartment. While officers were responding, they heard a gunshot and found Rosas dead from an apparent self-inflicted wound. After a suicide at a COVID-19 isolation hotel last year, San Diego County paid a private company millions of dollars to take over operations. But iNewsSource investigative reporter Jill Castellano says the situation hasn't gotten much better.
Guests and employees at the Crowne Plaza Hotel in Mission Valley say delayed medications, untrained staff, and threatening security guards are causing serious problems. The county has used the hotel since March to isolate people like William Morris and his wife Martha. They lived in their SUV with their dog Mini-Me until the county sent them to the Crowne Plaza in November, when Martha tested positive for COVID-19.
I wouldn't put my worst enemy in a place like that. But those security guards, they shouldn't work with people ever again. They don't have empathy for people, compassion for people, and they're a bunch of animals running wild.
Calls to the San Diego Police Department about the Crowne Plaza have tripled since the start of the pandemic. Many of those calls concerned mental health issues, including suicide threats. Those calls continued even after the county signed a contract for $30 million with a company called Equus Workforce Solutions to run all the operations starting in August. Equus is now in charge of supplying food, medications, security, and all other services to guests isolating at the Crowne Plaza. A county spokesperson said when issues have arisen at the Crowne Plaza, they've been immediately addressed. An Equus representative said it has implemented policies and trained staff to help people in isolation as much as possible. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Jill Castellano.
If you or someone you know is considering suicide, call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. Launching a COVID-19 vaccination site takes meticulous planning and management. KPBS is tracking that process at a local community clinic in an ongoing series. In Part 2, KPBS health reporter Taryn Mento spotlights the rigid handling procedures necessary to ensure every dose remains viable.
A gentle swirl of the COVID-19 vaccine vial is critical. Anything more could render the dose ineffective before it fills a syringe and penetrates an arm. The risk begins even before the shipped vials cross the threshold at Family Health Centers of San Diego.
They're packed very carefully to minimize disturbance.
Lisa Duncan is Vice President of Nursing and Clinical Compliance at Family Health Centers. She oversees vaccinations at the community clinic.
They're frozen, so that helps. They don't get sloshed around.
It can't even be relocated off-site without a prior okay.
They can maybe have one transport that has to be approved in advance to transfer vaccine supplies, so that everyone knows where the vaccines are.
The vaccine's fragility adds an extra layer of complexity for providers. They must inject doses quickly to reach the county's vaccination goal by July, but they also must take great care. Mishandling can destroy the vaccine's potency, and ongoing supply challenges mean backup doses are practically non-existent.
It's a great art and science of managing this vaccine.
Family Health Center's current small-scale operation in their break room is sort of a trial run. They're planning to vaccinate hundreds of people a day at an upcoming site outside their Logan Heights clinic. But the nation's limited vaccine supplies have delayed its opening, making proper handling that much more critical.
So this is a conference room that we've repurposed for staging the vaccine. We have a freezer here that when the vaccine arrives from the manufacturer, we put it right into the freezer.
The pharmaceutical-grade freezer that's no bigger than a college dorm fridge is the key component. Anything outside the required cold temperatures triggers an alarm.
It's hooked up to our Wi-Fi, and it'll send us a message whenever or if we have, hopefully it doesn't happen, but if the unit goes out of range, then we're notified immediately.
But the vaccine must actually be thawed before it can be used. It'll last up to 30 days in a fridge, but only hours in the room down the hall where dosing takes place. And once the vial is pierced, it has a 6-hour shelf life.
You're constantly looking at how much needs to go in the refrigerator, how much do we pull out and put into the room, how long has it been in the room, how long has it been open since you took out the first dose?
It's almost as though you were dealing with chocolate.
Dr. Dial Hewlett is Deputy Health Commissioner for Westchester County in New York. He credits another scientist with the analogy, but recounts it to explain the vulnerability of a key ingredient in the vaccine, ribonucleic acid, or RNA for short.
And if you have chocolate, you know that if you get to a certain temperature, it's going to melt.
Hence the cold.
You have enzymes that will destroy the integrity that are not going to be active when you have a very low temperature, but when you have a higher temperature, those enzymes will become activated.
Providers like family health centers have coordinators whose sole job is to monitor the safe handling and storage of vaccines.
All of us are very much aware of the parameters and back each other up on that, but generally one person is in charge of making sure that the supply is moving out of the refrigerator appropriately. And then at the end of the day, everybody starts sharing the vial so that we don't open one up.
Every detail here will be duplicated and expanded at Logan Heights. Family Health Centers is hoping it will accommodate up to 750 people a day. But vaccine supply shortages mean it's on hold for now. They're hoping shipments will flow early next month thanks to an upcoming federal program that prioritizes community clinics. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
We have more information at kpbs.org. Just click on the Vaccines tab on our homepage. You'll find a searchable map with clinic locations and links to make an appointment if you're eligible. Snow and record low temperatures have stalled shipments and deliveries of COVID-19 vaccines across the U.S., including here in San Diego. Mandy Gaither has more on what you need to know on vaccine delays.
When it comes to COVID-19 vaccines, it's a waiting game.
We know many Americans are awaiting their second dose, and many more their first dose.
Both vaccines on the U.S. market require 2 doses, intended to be given 21 days apart for Pfizer and 28 days apart for Moderna. But if your appointment for a second vaccine dose was canceled because of weather delays or power outages, the CDC says you should still have time to get fully vaccinated, and that second dose can be administered up to 6 weeks after the first shot.
We're asking vaccine administration sites to extend their hours even further and offer additional appointments, and to try to reschedule their vaccinations over the coming days and weeks as significantly more supply arrives.
2 letters to major medical journals provided fuel for the argument that with coronavirus vaccine scarcity, people can skip their second doses, immediately doubling the supply for others. But top U.S. health officials say it's too risky.
The reason is, even though you can get a fair degree of, quote, protection after a single dose, it clearly is not durable.
Last week, vaccination numbers were impacted because of the weather. As everything begins to get back on track, White House officials are asking states, vaccination sites, and those giving vaccinations to help the country catch up.
If we all work together, from the factory all the way to the vaccinators, we will make up for it in the coming weeks.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Marines and sailors from Camp Pendleton have deployed to Texas at FEMA's request to support a COVID-19 vaccination center. They're starting work this week at the Ranger Stadium in Arlington, where they're expected to administer close to 3,000 doses a day. The troops are part of a larger military task force providing support in California, Arizona, Texas, and the Navajo Nation.
Dry weather is with us for the foreseeable future, and we'll have a nice sunny, warm day on Tuesday.
Then later this week, we'll have an episode of Santa Ana winds, probably coming in late Wednesday night and into Thursday. So let's take a look at our temperatures tonight. We'll be dipping down to low 40s in Oceanside and Escondido. Ramona's down to 37, and El Cajon's at 46. San Diego's at 50. Borrego Springs 49, and Campo down to 40 degrees. Here's a look at our Tuesday weather. It looks wonderful. We should have a nice warm day, and we'll of course have the dry conditions. High up to 69 in Oceanside, but San Diego hits 71. 77 Escondido to Ramona, and El Cajon hits 80. Up to 82 in Borrego Springs and 72 in Campo. Looking at Wednesday's weather, well, it stays warm in the interior, but temperatures near the coast probably starting to drop off by a degree or two. So there you can see our temperatures starting to drop just a touch there on Wednesday, as we'll have a little bit of an onshore flow. But then the flow turns right back offshore with that Santa Ana event coming in Wednesday night into Thursday. And then as we take you through the end of the week, rather tranquil conditions. Looking inland, nice and warm Tuesday. Temperatures drop off a touch. There's your wind on Thursday. And then by the weekend, we could see perhaps a shower here in the mountains. Strong gusty winds on Thursday and perhaps into Friday. And the breeze is still with us on Saturday. Looking at the deserts, warm the next couple of days, but significantly cooler with an inside slider slipping down through the area Thursday. Then the temperatures rebound into the weekend, and we're still dry. And for KPBS News, I am meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
Look closely the next time you go to fill up because gas prices are climbing. The recent snowstorm in Texas is causing prices to spike nationwide, but prices were already climbing steadily the past month. The average price of a gallon of self-serve in the county is $3.62. In fact, prices have jumped 27 cents over the past 33 days. Pay what you can is the philosophy of Coastal Roots Farm in Encinitas. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer shows us how they're helping to feed San Diegans.
Coastal Roots Farm in Encinitas shares organic produce with those who need it most. Situated across 17 acres of land, the nonprofit began its journey just over 5 years ago. They now donate over half of their harvest each year to community members who lack access to fresh food through local hunger relief organizations across San Diego County. Coastal Roots Farm President and CEO Javier Guerrero says they also help the community through their Pay What You Can farm stands and free food distributions.
Now during COVID, you would come, you would fill out a little menu of items that you would check, and it would be bagged for you. So we're trying to keep everybody safe, and then you would go up to the Pay What You Can, to the kiosk there, and you would be able to choose in increments how much you would like to reduce up to $30.
The organization has had a focus on helping local Holocaust survivors, active duty military and veterans, immigrants and refugees, Native American communities, and low-income seniors and families. Education manager Sharon Oren says they also run camps to educate children of all backgrounds on how to connect with nature.
We provide partial and full scholarships. And so for us, growing this food out here, having the kids be engaged in that process, they're planting and they're pulling weeds and they're harvesting, we know that that is all going back to those schools and to those families who couldn't otherwise afford such an experience.
Guerrero says the need for food from their farm has greatly increased during the pandemic.
Prior to COVID, you know, it was about a third of the produce that we were offering through the Pay What You Can farm stand was being donated, right? People were needing that food. It's actually grown to closer to 2/3 during COVID.
The farm stand is open Thursday 12 to 3 p.m. and Sunday 10 to 3 p.m. and their pay-as-you-can policy is discreetly processed at a cash register. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Well, today the Padres held their first official practice of spring training, and the team finalized its biggest move of a busy offseason. Fernando Tatis Jr. signed a 14-year contract, reportedly worth $340 million. 2 years ago, he became the youngest player to make his debut on opening day with the Padres. And last year, Tatis earned an All-MLB First Team selection and a Silver Slugger Award. The 22-year-old says he's excited to be staying in San Diego.
It just feels great, you know, when you're just a kid dreaming on the field. When my dad was playing, and I see myself playing on the big leagues, being a winner, being one of the best of all the time, and now it's getting more complete.
And the Padres' first spring training game is this Sunday against the Mariners. Just under 2,000 fans will be allowed in the stands. New images show NASA's Perseverance rover landing on Mars. The event captured the fascination of the world last week, and the images are as amazing as the mission itself. The new video shows the final minutes of the rover's entry, descent, and landing, and the supersonic deployment of the largest parachute ever sent to another planet. There's also the first audio recording of sounds from Mars. A San Francisco landmark has a new home, 7 blocks from its original location. Spectators cheered as the 139-year-old Victorian was moved down Franklin Street to its new lot on Fulton Street just yesterday. Work crews had to trim some trees, move some power lines, and take down a few road signs to let the home squeeze down the street. According to the San Francisco Historical Society, the move is the first of its kind in 50 years. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.